Okay, guys, how do you hitchhike a ride in space? Well, I designed a vehicle that can be used to hitchhike by smaller pods or smaller vehicles. They don't have the ability to travel high speed in space, but it can be used for cargo vehicles or stuff that other ships that don't have the ability to travel fast enough. They can use these system to hitchhike. First of all, these are magnetic rings, electrical magnetic rings, and the more powerful the magnets to either create a tug or slow down a vehicle or to speed it up. So you have once you establish a elliptical orbit, and you have these magnetic rings. They go around in an elliptical orbit. And I have an example here. There's a sun here. Earth's right here. And you got Pluto as an example. Okay, so these magnetic rings, they go in elliptical orbit, and maybe they're, let's jump just as an example. Let's say they're a couple hours apart, one behind the other, so they go, or at least every other day. It doesn't matter, just to have them apart, because that will actually help in the hitchhiking system. So we have a vehicle here, right? And before and after, pretty much, let's say the elliptical ring of magnets are going this way, and a high velocity. They already established an elliptical orbit, and they're already going at extremely fast velocity beyond normal average spacecraft. So let's say this spacecraft is flying at normal speed, and this is going at extreme velocity. So it'll just overtake it almost immediately. So if they go right in the center of this right here, so if this is going extremely fast, and overtakes the aircraft, the magnetic fields will give it a little tug. So as it passes through the ship, right, it gives it a little tug with the magnetic field, like two magnets, right? It'll give it a tug and pull it forward a couple miles or a couple miles faster. So it's just a little slight tug, and it'll move this vehicle faster. So it'll give you like a little push. It's just like you being on a bicycle and you grab a hold of a back of a truck for just to start with, gain some speed and let go. That's what it pretty much the way it works. There's the magnetic tug. It pulls it, slight tug, and pulls it faster forward than it was originally going. So it adds a speed, kinetic speed to it, just a couple more miles faster, and it passes through. Because if it did the whole tug at 100%, this will have a severe impact from that massive tug, and like, pulling it a drastic force might create some tear and wear on the vehicle. So you don't want that, and the passengers might actually feel the effect of the immediate speed jump from, let's say, a couple hundred miles to almost millions of miles instantly. It would be like a massive impact on the human body and on the aircraft. So what it does is it creates this slight tug as it passes. And the other one behind it comes around, let's say an hour later, and does the same thing. It creates another tug, it pulls it forward. So every time the ring goes by, it pulls it more and more faster and more faster and more faster. You're tugging it forward. It's like towing a vehicle, but it just towing it for a fraction of a second, and that tug pulls it faster and faster and faster, and it makes this vehicle speed up. So and then doing that several times, they'll reach the velocity that should be able to reach the Pluto in less time, without actually having any kind of massive propulsion. It pretty much, you hitchhiking a ride on these rings. The rings, as they pass through, it pulls it, tugs it forward faster and faster. So you have this is one elliptical orbit, and you should have at least two. One is to tug it forward this way, from Earth to, let's say, an example is this one, Pluto, and another elliptical orbit above it or next to it, going for return. So let's say you had another one up here So this vehicle can do is just to move slightly up. Just I'm trying to, let's say there's another ring here. Excuse my, not circular, but let's say there's another system here of rings, but this one's another elliptical, and it's only a couple of miles away from this one. So if this vehicle wants to return back, wants to go back, see this is one. This is taking it this way, but it is another invisible elliptical second one, right? And it wants to return back, and this is going backwards, just a couple miles, move over, and the vehicle will be right here, right inside. It'll be slowing down, like braking system. So it'll slow it down and eventually take it the opposite direction. So that's the way it works, guys. It's a new system of hitchhiking in space. It's call it a train system or transportation, highway transportation in space. It pretty simple, but it would allow something to travel.